Hello, teacher. This time, my partner José Estrada and I, Sonia López, will be explaining a little bit about chapters 3 and 4 of the book Teaching English as a Foreign Language 1. Well, the chapter 3 is Background Issues in Language Learning. The miracle of language. It's important to highlight the ability that a child must learn something new. When they see it, they want to do it and practice it. This is where learning a language comes. It is easy for children to learn a new language at a young age. They acquire it unconsciously without any effort. This is due to their curiosity to do what they see in other people, be it their parents, teachers, or with the same children around them. The language with which they are speaking is more explicit because obviously communicating with a child is not the same as using a language to speak with an adult, for example. They are spoken to in a way they can understand, making them part of a conversation since they are babies by grammars or sounds that they learn to disappear. Um, Parents seek acquire their own specific and unique way to communicate with children before their development, and thus they, without knowing grammar rules and anything about language, know how to communicate their feeling and convey what they want or need. But the question is, how do you replicate the success of the type of language acquisition in the language learning classroom? Well, here are some theories to help what methods or techniques can be adopted and put into practice. One technique or method that methodologists have used is acquisition and learning. All people learn in different ways. Some find it easy to learn just by listening or saying. However, many people learn by practicing. To learn a second language it's easy for some without attending classes, while others attend classes is crucial to learn the language they want. Harold Palmer highlighted the difference between spontaneous ability and study skills. The first was acquired naturally and unconsciously, and the second was acquired by applying learning and knowledge. For Palmer, each had a different function. Spontaneous ability are put into play for the acquisition of a spoken language, while study ability are necessary for development of literacy within people. On the other hand, and taking into account in the distinction between the subcognition and cognition acquisition, Stephen Krashen affirmed that the subcognition language was one that could be acquired without prior notice in a spontaneous way and could be used very easily in a fluid conversation. On the other hand, when it is learned and studied, it doesn't flow spontaneously because it already has a correct use of vocabulary and grammar rules. The two capacities are acquired and learned differently, but in character and in effect. That is to say, the second capacity carries more complexity than one that flows easily while knowing what you are talking about. Christian believed that for the full acquisition of the second language, a student will have to have knowledge and understanding of the linguistic information they receive. If this were correct, student will have to be exposed to a large amount of information to have a good use of writing. Students should learn consciously, but if it is only for spontaneous communication, an exaggerated amount of information is not necessary. Another technique is the contribution of behaviorism. Not everyone ends up accepting lessons based on spontaneous or learned acquisition. Others approve of the direct method that has shown higher learning than simply acquired. The direct method emerged at the end of the 19th century and laid a foundation for classroom practices that persist today. Those who use the direct method only use English in the classroom, objects, images, or demonstrations were associated for a better understanding. A concentration using the direct form was considered to have more advantage than some confusion acquisitions. Um, Students assimilate only part of the language to which they are exposed. In behavioral theory, a condition is the result of a three-stage procedure that stimulus, response, and reinforcement. In language learning, behavioral inclination is evident when students are asked to do to task or activity correctly and are rewarded with praise from the teacher or some other benefit. Students pay more attention to doing things well, tend to be more responsible, and develop a better language. Following the stimulus response and reinforcement model, behaviorism was responsible for audiolinguistics. The influence of behaviorism was and is the direct opposite of any theory of subconjunction acquisition. Language learning will take care of itself. Well, the educational theorist Ivan Illich had a poor vision about what happened in a classroom. He claimed that the more information was received, the more knowledge was learned and knowledge increased. Learning is the result of engagement with a meaningful environment for the students. Dick Arkwright and some of his colleagues realized that in the way it had been thought they were not giving the result they expected. They were working on a hypothesis where learning the language will take care of itself. Engaging a student to practice speaking and reading in different ways and interaction and communication with people seemed to have a positive and favorable outcome for students. Progress was more impressive than in previous years. Doing something by doing had a more significant result, so being available to communicate as it was practiced was one the best way to learn since students have the opportunity to express what they think and feel. If the language was developing by itself same. Other techniques or methodology present is focus on form or focus on forms. Learning arises from the performance of communicate tasks. It is believed in idea that the students tend to learn better when they are involved in meaningful tasks, and quite the opposite of what was mentioned before with array theory. It is basically focused when students are involved in paying conscious attention to something specific within the language with the help of the teacher or simple for the student own interest. Learning can occur spontaneously and naturally when students are interested in knowing and how is it done, and being deeply involved in this type of meaningful task attracts more attention than just relying or focusing rather on programs of a book just because they're there. Performing a task can significantly increase student awareness of the target structure and improve accuracy in its use, as well as provide opportunities for language comprehension and productions. Shapes that draw attention to themselves and are perceptually outstanding will obviously have a higher probability of interest in students. In short, those who acquire language better are those who focus on a remarkable way, either because they need it or simple found a task with significant learning and not a series of predetermined ways. Making sense of it all. If it isn't given a good understanding, all the theories will be of no use. You must have the ability to find the purpose of each of them. They all live learning in different ways, and it is acquired. Success in learning is closely related to the teaching method and, more importantly, to the personality and age of the students. The importance of repetitions. Repetition is the most natural and effective learning mechanism to consolidate language learning not only in the short term but also in the long term. Students in the middle of waiting to learn something through repetition have a better chance of organizing and remembering what it is learning. When they repeat more, either is speaking or listening, they become familiar with what they are learning or what they want to learn. And don't forget it quickly. Instead, they have the ability to improve with each repetition, to realize what or how they will be better developed and what to avoid for better understand and use. Most students learn by thinking about the language. Basically, it is making them come into contact with the language they are wanting to learn, making them think about the disposition of what they want to speak. If the students have to make decision about the words and the grammar, they are studying. That is, if their encounter with the language has some cognitive depth, they are much more likely to understand and remember that language. Practice has a great value since through in they can more easily acquire what they are wanting to learn, leave in their hand the possibility that they seek understanding in their own way and have their own conclusion about what is being learned. Let him realize what he is trying to say, understand, or hear, maybe. Of course, not everyone will have the same ability if the language must know what is best for the student and with which they can fit without any distinction or less appreciating others, maybe, all with the same equally. Arousal effect and humanistic teaching. When students show a certain interest in what they want to learn, they become engaged with what is happening and engage their attentions, and they increase to the chances of being able to understand and give it importance. The presence of feelings in students and more if they are excessively negative tend to compromise learning since when they don't have a positive attitude their affect filter races and block the entrance so that isn't absorbed and processed and thus make difficult understanding in what is being studied. However, when a student is relaxing, clear mind and maybe away from worries are easy and the acquisition of language, a new language, is more effective. The teacher has to be crucial in maintaining and disposition in the classroom so that the students can identify with the language through feelings and emotion. Although not everyone agrees with this, some skeptics suggest that paying too much attention to affect problems in learning may mean that teachers neglect the cognitive and intellectual development of students. When you're ready, can students learn new things depending on their training to learn? It is mentioned that the ability of a student to learn new things has a lot to do with this depending on whether or not they are prepared to learn, since it is not correct for the teacher to start directly with stage 2 maybe when a student does not have the preparation from a beginning with a stage 1. A complication will arise because they will have a learning gap. Vygotsky believed that learning was an assisted performed since someone with more experience and knowledge helps the students to understand so that he can progress in his learning of the language. All of this has gained with widespread credibility and has helped focus on how teachers and students interact, especially when they are being helped or asked to try something new within the language being learned. As the last part of the chapter, you will find the language game. It can be the most fun and easy way to understand since your main attention is focused on the area of humor games. Within the language game, cook points that many ways are included in which the way of learning becomes fun and interesting. The game is often collaborate that make it possible to learn in an entertaining way and by watching the performance of the companions. And not only can children exercise it, it can also be carried out by all students of different grades since having fun and learning acts in a positive way on the affection of the students. Well, playing this type of games makes students subject to rules. They are linguistically repetitive and can help them remember more easily, and it becomes useful for development of the student's language. Well, this is all for me. My partner will be continuing.
Hello, teacher. I'm going to talk you about the chapter 4, and it's called the popular methodology. First, we start with approach. Instead of to theories about the origin of the language and the language learning, each of these are the source of the way things are done and provides the motivation to complete the task. An approach offers a model of language skill and it justifies how people obtain and how they persevere on the learning of the language. For the method, in simple words, it's the achievement of an approach. The creators of the method have gotten to a decision about the kinds of activities, roles of teachers and students, and also about the material used for classes and activities. When methods fix procedures by an approach, they are much easier to describe. Nevertheless, when procedures and techniques are taken from a wide range of foundations or from information of other beliefs, it is harder to describe. Now, procedures. Uh, Summarizing, it's an ordered sequence of techniques. A clear example of this is when a teacher indicates the students to work in groups to read a poem. So every member of the group will read a line until the poem is completed. In other words, a procedure is a sequence of steps to complete a task. It is smaller than a method but bigger than a technique. Now, what's a technique? It can be defined as a reinforcement to enhance the learning. The document gives an example called silent viewing, in which the teacher plays a video with no sounds, and the students analyze the video and describe it as a sequence. Now we got grammar translation. This method gives sentences in the target languages to be translated to the mother language and vice versa, using target languages rules of grammar to analyze. Direct method. In this method, translation is left behind and let the students work with grammar, objects, and pictures to understand their meaning. Audiolingualism. In this method, it's pretty simple actually. It uses the repetition and practicing to boost the learning. Now, presentation. This starts a method called the triple P, which involves presentation, practice, and production. First, we have presentation. For this method, the teacher shows a picture and asks the students to act in a similar situation of the picture, like at work or on a holiday. Next, we have practice. Now, students repeat the sentences after the teacher and correct their mistakes and can set the students to work in pairs, for example, or trios, to work and correct their mistakes and pronunciation. Now, the last P, we have production. Now, the students are available to use the new language and vocabulary to create sentences with minor grammar mistakes and less pronunciation mistakes. Now we have some alternates to the triple P. One of them is called ESA, and the E stands for engage. Affect is important for a better learning. If students are not engaged, learning is less effective. S stands for study, and explain how grammar parts like relative clauses, intonation, building a paragraph, or the position of a word in a sentence. A stands for active and encourage students to use the vocabulary they know. Now we have the four methods. First, we can find four principal methods to enhance the learning. First one is Community Language Learner, or CLL. Its principal function is to increase the responsibilities to improve the learning. Next, we have the Communicative Language Teaching, or CLT, and focuses more on the students communicating and interaction in the target language. Then we have the task-based learning, or TBL, and it's supposed that students improve the learning by thinking in the language as a non-linguistic problem. And finally, we have the silent way, and it uses to work in blocks of sounds that can be worked on any language. Next, we have the suggestopedia, and it tries to eliminate any negative vibe from learning and tries to overcome all the difficulties. It also creates a parent-children or teacher-student relationship to enhance the learning. Next, we have the total physical response, or TPR, in which the children learn a language from speeches and also helps adults to learn in a better way. Also, some feelings of success and less anxiety facilitate the learning. And by the end, we have the lexical approach, which tries the language as not the typical and boring grammar and vocabulary, but also phrases, collocations, and idioms. Okay, teacher, this has been our presentation. I hope you like it, and see you the next time.